The story of Jeffrey Epstein and the sprawling Epstein Files is a modern tragedy of systemic failure, where immense wealth intersected with predatory behavior to create a web that snared the vulnerable and the powerful alike. To understand the files released by the Department of Justice as recently as early 2026, one must first look back to the 1970s, where Epstein's journey began not in a boardroom, but in a classroom. Despite lacking a college degree, Epstein's intellect in mathematics led him to the elite Dalton School in Manhattan. It was here that his social climbing began in earnest, as he leveraged connections with a student's father to land a job at the investment bank Bear Stearns. By the 1980s, he had transitioned from a math teacher to a financial fixer, eventually forming J. Epstein and Company. His most significant client was Leslie Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret, a relationship that granted Epstein the financial firepower and social legitimacy needed to build an empire of influence. As Epstein's bank account grew, so did a dark, parallel enterprise. By the early 2000s, reports began to surface from his Palm Beach mansion of a massage business that relied on the systematic recruitment of teenage girls. The Epstein Files contain the harrowing origins of this era, documenting how local police in Florida identified a clear pattern of abuse as early as 2005. Despite overwhelming evidence and a 53-page federal indictment drafted by investigators, the legal system blinked. In 2008, Epstein secured what is now considered one of the most controversial plea deals in American history, a non-prosecution agreement, NPA, that allowed him to plead guilty to 2 state-level prostitution charges. He served just 13 months in a private wing of a county jail with daily work release privileges, a sweetheart deal that effectively silenced his victims and shielded potential co-conspirators for over a decade. The true scope of the scandal only began to emerge through the persistence of survivors and investigative journalists, leading to the landmark 2015 civil lawsuit filed by Virginia Giuffre against Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. This lawsuit became the Rosetta Stone for the Epstein Files. Over the next decade, millions of pages of documents, including flight logs of the Lolita Express private jet, deposition transcripts, and personal address books, were slowly unsealed by court order. These files revealed a dizzying array of high-profile associates, from former Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump to Prince Andrew and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. While the documents clarify that mere inclusion in a flight log is not proof of a crime, they paint a devastating picture of a man who used his proximity to power as a suit of armor, normalizing his predatory behavior within the world's most elite circles. The narrative reached a fever pitch in 2019 with Epstein's second arrest and his subsequent death in a Manhattan jail cell, an event that launched 1,000 conspiracy theories. However, the release of the final batch of over 3.5 million documents in early 2026 under the Epstein Files Transparency Act has shifted the focus back to institutional accountability. These latest records include FBI diagrams of the trafficking network, internal DOJ emails, and thousands of images and videos seized from Epstein's properties. They reveal the compromised culture Epstein allegedly cultivated, using surveillance cameras in his homes to potentially gather leverage over his guests. This massive disclosure has forced a global reckoning, prompting universities to return donations, financial institutions to overhaul ethics protocols, and governments to face the uncomfortable truth that for 20 years, the mechanisms of justice were stalled by the very people they were meant to oversee. Ultimately, the impact of the Epstein Files extends far beyond the names on a list. They represent a fundamental shift in how the public views the intersection of wealth and the law. The files have empowered a new generation of survivor advocacy, proving that even the most carefully guarded secrets can eventually be brought to light. As we look at the millions of pages now available to the public, the legacy of the Epstein case remains a somber reminder of the work required to ensure that no individual, regardless of their net worth or social standing, is ever truly untouchable again. The documents are no longer just evidence in a closed case, they are a permanent archive of a systemic failure that the world is still struggling to fully rectify.